Boots slammed against the galley floor, echo sharp, heads snapping. "Move, lady!" one recruit barked. Tray shoved hard into Whitney's shoulder. She didn't flinch. Another blocked her path, chair scraping, laughter rising. "You don't belong here," a voice sneered, hand reaching. Whitney's fork clattered down. In one motion, her grip snapped the wrist, elbow driving into ribs, air exploding from lungs. Bodies lunged. She pivoted, kick-slicing ankles, crash of metal trays scattering food across polished tile. Gasps erupted. Phones lifted. Third recruit grabbed from behind. She twisted, momentum flipping him flat, backslamming floor. The fourth froze, then charged. She met him mid-step, hip throw perfect, the thud rattling dishes. Silence devoured the galley. Recruits sprawled, groaning, breathless. Whitney stood tall, eyes steady, barely moving. "Last chance," her voice cut like steel. 45 seconds later, everyone would know the truth. A spoon rolled, pinging metal as witnesses froze, hearts pounding. If you believe no woman should ever be underestimated because of how she looks, type respect in the comments and tell us where you're watching from. Trays rattled, then stopped. The galley, once roaring with voices, sank into unnatural silence. 4 recruits groaned on the floor, limbs twisted, pride shattered. Phones hovered in shaky hands, red lights blinking record. Whitney Blackwood didn't move quickly. She brushed a crumb from her sleeve, boots planted, breath steady. On her right hand, a flash of metal caught the light, smooth titanium, etched with lines too deliberate for decoration. The ring pressed against her knuckle as her fist clenched, then eased. Gasps rippled. No one spoke. Forks hovered mid-air, bacon grease cooling on plates. Somewhere in the distance, a spoon rolled in slow circles, pinging until it stilled. The recruits tried to rise, chairs scraping. Whitney's gaze cut sharp, pinning them back down without a word. One boy swallowed hard, throat bobbing like he'd bitten glass. Eyes drifted to the ring again. It glinted under the fluorescent glare, a trident carved into its surface, worn smooth by years of touch. Most mistook it for jewelry. One man in the corner, older, uniform sleeves rolled, froze. His jaw tightened. He had seen that mark before. No words passed between them, just recognition. His eyes narrowed, following her every movement as if cataloging evidence. Whitney slid her tray aside, porcelain scraping steel. She rose, calm as a shadow, boots whispering over the tile. The 4 recruits shifted, shame choking their earlier bravado. Around them, whispers caught fire. "What was that?" "Did you see? How did she?" She ignored it all. Her hand brushed the titanium ring once more, thumb over trident, as if grounding herself. The room watched, breathless, waiting for something, anything to break the silence. Then the old sailor stood, clearing his throat. His voice, low but edged with steel, carried across the galley. "Where did you learn to move like that?" Whitney turned, brown eyes locking with his. She didn't answer. Silence stretched taut, heavier than any word. Every sailor in that room understood one truth. This was no ordinary woman. Whitney Blackwood walked the corridors of GB Little Creek Fort Story as if she belonged nowhere and everywhere at once. On paper, she was a logistics specialist, responsible for schedules, inventory, and the dull mathematics of moving supplies. She signed papers with precision, answered radios with clipped professionalism, and kept her head down. Colleagues thought her quiet. Some whispered she was aloof, maybe too proud. Others decided she was shy. No one guessed the truth. Each morning she tied her dark hair tight, buttoned her uniform with exact lines, and slipped the titanium ring onto her finger last. She never removed it. To most, it was decoration. To her, it was a weight. The galley incident replayed in fragments in her mind as she worked, an elbow driving into ribs, a body hitting steel. She had moved without thought, instincts honed far from the safety of Virginia Beach. That was the danger. Once reflexes ignited, they never looked ordinary. She kept to routines. Coffee at 600, files by 700, supply checklists completed before noon. Yet her eyes always mapped exits. Her ears always caught footsteps before doors opened. Her body never forgot. At night, when the base dimmed and others sought laughter or sleep, Whitney traced the ring's trident with her thumb. She remembered sand grinding into her teeth, cold surf dragging her under, voices screaming above the waves. Again! She remembered someone else's hand pushing her forward when she thought her body would break. That hand was gone now, and the ring remained. Her cover was fragile, and she knew it. Logistics was the perfect mask. Necessary, invisible, unglamorous. She was supposed to be background noise. But background noise didn't flip recruits in full view of a galley filled with phones. Whitney filed another report, her pen pressing harder than needed, the paper nearly tearing. She breathed once, steadying. She had survived worse storms than whispers. Yet the storm building now wasn't in her control. Somewhere on the base, the video was spreading. Somewhere, voices were already asking the wrong questions. And Whitney knew one truth. Questions had a way of reaching doors she couldn't close. The galley didn't stay silent for long. Whispers grew louder, bouncing off steel walls until they became a wave of murmurs. The 4 recruits, bruised, embarrassed, egos punctured, gathered in the corner. Logan Fletcher rubbed his ribs, eyes blazing. Kyle Bennett coughed, still catching breath. Mason Hudson limped, clutching his ankle. Owen Reed stood apart, jaw tight, conflict carved across his face. "They're laughing at us," Logan hissed, fists trembling. "She made fools out of us. She cheated," Mason snapped, face red, voice cracking louder than he meant. "No woman moves like that unless she's been trained dirty. She doesn't belong here." Kyle nodded eagerly, desperate to mask his fear. "We can't let her get away with it. If we don't push back, everyone will think we're weak." Owen's voice was low, almost pleading. "Maybe just leave it. She didn't hit harder than necessary. She gave us chances. You all felt it. That wasn't about proving herself. It was about ending it fast." Logan spun, anger raw. "Don't start siding with her. She embarrassed you too. Or are you too blind to see it?" Owen swallowed hard but said nothing. His silence felt like betrayal to the others. Across the galley, Whitney sat again, calm as if none of it mattered. Her tray remained half full, untouched now, steam long faded. She didn't look at them, didn't acknowledge their glares. She adjusted her sleeve, checked the time, thumb brushing the titanium ring. The recruits bristled. The lack of reaction burned more than a punch. "She thinks she's untouchable," Mason muttered. "We'll show her she's not." Logan slammed a fist into his palm, the crack echoing. "Tonight! Outside the barracks. No crowd, no witnesses, just us and her. She'll learn respect." Around them, sailors exchanged uneasy glances. Some smirked, waiting for more drama. Others frowned, sensing danger. Word spread faster than spilled coffee. By evening, half the base would know a storm was coming. Chief Garrett, watching from across the room, didn't move. His eyes tracked Whitney, not the recruits. He saw the ring flash again under fluorescent glare. He knew trouble wasn't brewing. It had already arrived. Whitney finally stood, gathering her tray, boots steady. She walked past the recruits, their whispers biting. She didn't turn, didn't speak, didn't blink. And that silence, the refusal to even grant them her attention, cut deeper than any blow. They weren't finished, and she knew it. The titanium ring pressed cold against Whitney's skin as she walked the corridor. Its weight pulled her mind backward, far from the safety of Little Creek, back to nights when surf and sand had been merciless. Salt water swallowed her lungs. Instructors' voices thundered through the darkness. "Again! Get up!" Her body shook, muscles screaming, but quitting was death of another kind. She clawed through the surf, boots dragging, teammates dragging each other. One hand always gripped hers, firm, unyielding, belonging to Vale Harrison. Vale had been the steady anchor in chaos. Broad grin, even in misery, he'd whisper, "One more wave, Blackwood. Just one more." Together they crawled through mud, carried boats over bloodied shoulders, and fought exhaustion until dawn blurred with dusk. It was during that crucible she learned precision. Every strike, every movement sharpened by necessity. There was no wasted energy, no second chances. She remembered the night the ring became hers. A training mission had spiraled into nightmare. Black water, failing equipment, the current tearing them apart. Vale had shoved her upward, forcing air into her lungs as his own breath gave out. When they pulled his body from the surf hours later, cold and still, the instructors said nothing. Death was part of the course. They gave her his gear in silence. Inside a pocket was the titanium ring, etched with a trident. She slipped it onto her finger, refusing to let it go, not out of sentiment alone, but as oath. She would finish what he could not. Years later, she carried the ring into real missions, streets choked with dust, compounds collapsing under fire, shadows where silence meant survival. Each time she brushed its edge, she remembered his voice. One more wave. Now, in Virginia, that voice echoed again. Not in surf, but in whispers across the galley, in the reckless anger of recruits who thought her ordinary. She had faced worse than their sneers. She had bled for lessons they couldn't imagine. Whitney touched the ring as she reached her quarters. The trident bit into her skin, grounding her. Vale's ghost walked beside her still. And she promised silently she wouldn't fail him. Not here, not anywhere. Morning rolled into afternoon, but the galley incident clung to every hallway. Whispers carried faster than official reports, traveling from one barracks to the next. Sailors who hadn't seen it demanded every detail from those who had. And those who had kept replaying the same words. She moved like no one I've ever seen. In the supply office, Whitney wrote line items with calm precision. Yet even there, silence spread whenever she entered. Papers shuffled, conversations halted, eyes tracked her movements. She never raised her voice, never broke protocol, but every gesture betrayed control too exact for coincidence. A pen slipped from a desk. Whitney's hand shot out, catching it mid-air before it touched the floor. She set it down softly, not even glancing at the stunned sailor staring back. Chief Garrett noticed. He had noticed everything since the galley. He carried the memory of combat in his own body, old scars, old reflexes, and he recognized them mirrored in her. The way she scanned rooms, how she placed her back to walls, how her eyes flicked to exits first, people second. These weren't habits of a clerk. He leaned against a doorway as she passed, arms crossed. "Blackwood," he said evenly. She stopped, posture sharp but relaxed. He didn't miss how her hand brushed the ring almost unconsciously. "That move in the galley," Garrett continued, voice low. "Wrist control, elbow, pivot, textbook efficiency, not something you learn in basic." Whitney met his gaze, brown eyes steady, unreadable. She said nothing. Garrett let silence hang, waiting. Finally, he nodded slowly. "I've seen people try to fake that calm. They can't hold it. You can." Behind them, two junior sailors whispered. "Did you hear?" She flipped Logan like he was paper. No way a logistics tech pulls that off. Their laughter was nervous, not mocking. In the barracks, Logan, Mason, and Kyle sat bruised, plotting half-hearted revenge. But every time someone entered, snickering or shaking their head, their bravado cracked further. Owen sat apart, staring at the floor, the echo of Whitney's voice. Last chance, still cutting deeper than any strike. Chief Garrett didn't confront her again that day. He didn't need to. The way she walked told him enough. Whitney Blackwood was no ordinary sailor, and soon the entire base would know it. Night draped itself over Little Creek, but the storm brewed indoors. The four recruits lingered outside the barracks, whispers sharp, tempers raw. Logan's knuckles were wrapped in tape. Kyle bounced on his heels. Mason limped, but swore he could fight. Owen stood behind them, face pale, doubt chewing through his chest. She humiliated us, Logan snarled. If we don't put her down, we'll never get respect back. Mason gritted his teeth. One more shot. No crowd this time, just us. Owen spoke quietly. She gave us a chance to walk away. Twice. Don't do this. Logan shoved him back. Then stay out of it. Word spread, as it always did. By the time Whitney entered the corridor, sailors lined walls in tense silence. Boots scuffed, breaths caught. Phones lit up again, waiting. Whitney walked steady, tray balanced, uniform perfect. She didn't look left or right, but every detail entered her awareness. 4 recruits ahead, crowd pressed close, Chief Garrett at the far end, arms folded, watching. Logan stepped forward, blocking her. His voice cut loud enough for every witness. You don't scare us. You're nothing but a fraud hiding behind a uniform. Gasps swept the hallway. Whitney set her tray down slowly on a ledge. Her hand brushed the titanium ring once, thumb pressing the trident. Her voice came quiet, steady as steel. Last chance. Mason barked laughter, too loud, too brittle. Listen to her. Last chance? What is she, a drill instructor? She's bluffing. But her eyes, calm, unshaken, made the laughter falter. Kyle lunged first, shoving toward her. Whitney pivoted, sidestep razor sharp, his body slamming into lockers with a hollow crash. Gasps burst through the crowd. Logan charged, fists up. Whitney didn't move. Not yet. Silence stretched. The recruits circled, adrenaline boiling. Chief Garrett stepped forward, voice booming. Enough! But no one moved. Every eye stayed locked on Whitney. She exhaled once, slow, centered. Then she whispered words that froze even the boldest heart. You wanted respect. You'll get your lesson. The corridor shook with the weight of silence. In that stillness, every sailor knew something more than fists was about to be revealed. The corridor pulsed with held breath. Logan rushed first, fury drowning caution. His fist cut the air. Whitney stepped inside the arc, palms snapping his elbow sideways, body rolling with fluid grace. The crack echoed, pain folding him down, gasps exploding from the crowd. Mason limped forward, teeth bared. He swung clumsily, momentum wild. Whitney dropped low, sweeping his legs with surgical precision. He crashed onto the tile, ankle twisting, his scream swallowed by silence. Kyle hesitated, then roared, charging blindly. Whitney caught his wrist mid-swing, pivoted, and flipped him hard into the lockers. Steele groaned, his body sliding down in defeat. Only Owen remained, back pressed to the wall, eyes wide. He raised both hands, voice shaking. I'm done. I want no part of this. Whitney didn't strike. She simply nodded once. Respect, given where restraint mattered. The corridor froze. 3 recruits groaned on the floor, 1 surrendered, and Whitney stood unmarked, breath steady, ring glinting like a blade under fluorescent light. Chief Garrett stepped forward, boots heavy, voice low but commanding. Those aren't logistics moves. His eyes locked on the titanium band, recognition sharp. I know that trident. I've seen it before. Murmurs surged through the crowd. Trident? Seal? No way. Whitney said nothing. She stood tall, eyes calm, silence louder than any confession. Garrett nodded once, as if confirming to himself. Blackwood, you don't need to say it. The way you fight already said everything. The recruits on the floor looked up, pain mingling with disbelief. Moments ago, they'd mocked her, called her weak, laughed at the idea of her strength. Now they stared at a truth they couldn't escape. She was something far beyond them. Phones recorded every second, sailors whispering, some awed, some ashamed. The story was no longer rumor, it was evidence. Evidence that this quiet woman, hidden in plain sight, carried the skill of warriors most had only read about. Whitney picked up her tray, calm as if nothing had happened. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. The silence she left behind was enough. Respect filled the void, uneasy, raw, but undeniable. And from that night forward, no one at Little Creek ever looked at Whitney Blackwood the same again. Thank you to everyone who typed respect. Your support honors Whitney Blackwood and every hidden warrior. Subscribe for more tales of dignity. Until next time, remember, true dignity can never be defeated.